So today, our objective is to understand the fundamentals of time management. For many students, the beginning of college or even in college means being more independent and being able to self-manage. Managing time is an important skill to possess because you're more likely to balance more activities, right? A lot of you before we started said that you had many different majors, and it doesn't matter what you go into in life, time management is a critical skill and an important skill for your success. So it's super important. So today's objectives is to have a clear understanding of time management and how it relates to prioritization, eliminating time wasters, conquering procrastination, which I think we all do at one point or another, and then balancing school, home, and work if we're working as well, and how to effectively implement SMART goals, and then of course rewarding yourself for those. So to get started, we are going to talk about eliminating the time wasters first.
So let's focus on the value. So eliminating time wasters. Time wasters exercise. We have a time waster exercise that we're going to go through. We will show you a group of questions. Simply select 1, 2, or 3, whichever pertains to you, and we will add it up at the end. So
if you have a piece of paper, you can just add, tally them down, or use your phone, whatever you want to use. Just we're going to show you a list of 3 questions. We'll read them, and you select. Be as honest as possible. Select 1, 2, or 3.
Yes.
Okay. There's 10 of them, so we'll add them up at the end.
Okay.
Or 8, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. The first one. Question number 1. I like my watch to be set exactly at the correct time. I like my watch to be set a few minutes ahead of the correct time. Most of the time, I don't wear a watch. So are you 1, 2, or 3?
So type it on your phone, put it on a piece of paper, whatever, but you'll have to add these up at the end.
Okay?
Okay? This is the first question, so you can join too.
Yeah.
So there's probably 10, so make sure you remember, or...
So either you're 1 point, 2 points, or 3. Okay? Ready? Next question. Number 2. In the course of my daily activities, I tend to walk and talk quite fast. In the course of my daily activities, I tend to take my time. In the course of my daily activities, I tend to walk and talk quite slowly. Which one are you? Because number 2 is the same.
Oh.
Same. Sorry. There you go.
Ready? Next.
Got it? All right. Next question. In high school, I almost always completed my assignments. In high school, I usually completed my assignments. In high school, I often failed to complete my assignments. So which one are you? 1, 2, or 3? All right. Next one. I rarely spend more than 15 minutes at a time on my mobile. I sometimes spend more than 15 minutes at a time on my mobile. I often spend more than 15 minutes at a time on my mobile. Which one are you?
That's a hard. Okay.
Next. I like to finish assignments and reports with a little time to spare. I like to finish assignments and reports exactly on their due date. I sometimes finish assignments and reports a little late. So the second one is actually I like to finish assignments and reports. Exactly, yeah, exactly on their due date. So it's not I'd, so it's I. Sorry about that. So which one are you? 1, 2, or 3? Next one. I rarely spend more than an hour eating a meal. I sometimes spend more than an hour eating a meal. I usually spend more than an hour eating a meal. Which one are you? 1, 2, or 3? All right. I never watch more than 1.5 hours of TV on a weeknight. I sometimes watch more than 1.5 hours of TV on a weeknight. I usually watch more than 1.5 hours of TV on a weeknight. So which one are you? Okay, next question. I never spend more than an hour on the internet surfing or chatting at any one time. I sometimes spend more than an hour on the internet surfing or chatting at one time. I usually spend more than an hour on the internet surfing or chatting at one time. Are you 1, 2, or 3? All right. All right, so now tally up your scores. And who scored more than a 10? Okay.
What does that mean?
So, all right. So if you scored above a 10, you probably have to adjust your priorities and begin to take more responsibility for managing your time. So now we will go in how much flexible time you have. This is a great visual of where your time is spent. This will show you. So we have a worksheet up here that you can take at the end of the course of the presentation. And so you tally up your score, and it's a good way visual of where your time is spent. So look at your, so you'll be able to look at your current time wasters, and it'll help you think about what you're currently doing or how to manage your time better.
It's a really good way to visualize exactly. If you scored more than 10, we need to work on time management,
Yeah.
right? So if this is a great way to visualize where most of those hours are going so that you can prioritize better, which leads us into the next section, talking more about prioritization. So prioritizing your time is probably the key to successful time management, but it's more about just managing your time. It's about managing yourself in relation to time. It's about setting priorities and taking charge. It means changing habits or activities that cause to waste time, and it means being willing to experiment with different methods and ideas to enable you to find the best way to make maximum use of your time. It is one of the hardest skills to obtain. Very hard. But one way to think about it is looking at the 80-20 rule. Has anyone heard of the 80-20 rule? Somebody has to have heard of the 80-20
Nobody?
rule.
I've heard of it, but I can't remember the entire.
Yeah? What is it? What, I mean, can you help me or should I tell you? Go ahead.
20% of the people do 80% of the work.
I'm sorry?
That's one version. 20% of the people do 80% of the work.
Yeah, and the concept is there. You're absolutely right. It comes from Pareto's principle that 80% of your results come from 20% of your actions. So same concept, right? But it shouldn't be that you're doing 5 million things to get the results. It should be that 20% that is prioritized as the most important is what is going to drive the value and drive the results. So, and for most people it comes down to analyzing what you're spending your time on, which this, if you want to grab at the end, you guys, is a really good visual way of really showing that.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to look at that if you want to grab it on your way out. But there is, so anyway, I'm supposed to say, are you focusing on the 20% of activities that drive 80% of your results in your life? But one way to really identify that is looking at an urgent, important matrix. And this matrix was really eye-opening for me in my younger years. Even when I did it last year in a time management class, you know, I'm like, oh, this makes sense. This doesn't make sense. You know, so it was very, very eye-opening.
It is. It makes you put, you know, where your priorities are at. Has anybody here used that?
You've heard of this before? Yeah. It's a good way to identify where your tasks fall in, and it's very eye-opening. So as long as you understand what each of these quadrants really mean, So I just want to tell you, but again, here is a great visual for you guys if you want to do this exercise. If you want to truly work on time management and make it better, then this is a great visual to go ahead and exercise to go ahead and complete on your own. And you can really see where things are. But
So if you take a look at it, to do this, you need to distinguish clear between what is urgent and what is important. I know you see it right there, urgent and important is in the first quadrant. And this requires immediate attention. There are crisis, problems, and deadlines. And so quadrant number 2 is important but not urgent. These are things that require planning. They lead to the most fulfillment. These are things that are opportunities, progress, high value, and long term. And so if you look at quadrant 3, that's urgent but not important. These are really not important, but you want to get it done now. These are things like routine, tasks, often time wasters. They fall into that category. So not urgent and not important. These are like trivial items.
right. Or something maybe that's someone else's priority, not necessarily your own, but you feel like you have to do it, but it's not your urgency to do. So this exercise, though, is something that really will help you manage your time more effectively. If you truly are honest with yourself and fill it out with all your tasks on where they fall, then you'll be able to identify where the opportunity lies. You really want everything that is the 20% of results that drive 80%, or 20% of what you do drive 80% of the results. That has to fall in this quadrant.
Yeah.
If things are falling in this quadrant, or this quadrant, you're not working on the things that are driving your most results, your best results. Does that make sense? Yeah.
All right. So now we're moving into conquering procrastination. So why do we procrastinate? Anybody answer that?
Fear of failure?
Absolutely,
Yeah, that's-
fear of failure.
It's true. Anything else?
Lack of focus.
Lack of focus, good one.
Yeah, so some of the things, procrastination means delaying a task of even several tasks that should be a priority. The ability to overcome procrastination and tackle the important actions that have the biggest positive impact in your life is a hallmark of the most successful people out there. So we procrastinate because there's no clear deadline, inadequate resources available, don't know where to begin, tasks feel overwhelming, no passion for doing the work, fear of failure, success.
Does this resonate with anyone else? Any of these? Why we procrastinate? Which one for you? Any of them? We all procrastinate. I do it too. We all do it, so we
Yeah.
have to admit that first,
Me too.
right? So anyone, you wanna? Any of these resonate with you?
The one that's not knowing where to start, that hits me a lot of times.
Yeah, sometimes you just don't know where to start. Yep. Anyone, how about someone over here?
No passion.
No passion, right? Maybe it's not something that you really want to do, right? Or enjoy doing. How about one of you guys?
Probably fear of failure.
I'm sorry? Just don't feel like doing it. Hey, that happens.
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure. Yeah, that's a big one, I think.
Yeah.
These all have happened to me
Yeah.
at one point or another, and I think they'll happen to all of us.
Yeah.
You know?
But once you get to that point where you're like, oh, I'm almost finished with it, right? What does that feel like? Rewarding?
Yeah, so now we have to talk about how we overcome this. How do we overcome procrastination? Your ability to select the most important task at any given minute and then start on the task and get it done both quickly and efficiently and well is probably the greatest impact on your success than any other skill that you'll have that you can ever develop. Get in the habit of setting clear priorities and getting tasks quickly finished. Most of the time management issues will seem to fade away. So we have 7 ways to overcome procrastination. If you really truly think about it, and these exercises will help you visualize that, you'll be able to overcome procrastination one of these ways. So either you delete it, which means ask yourself, what are the consequences for not doing this task at all? Remember the 80-20 rule. Maybe it doesn't need to be done in the first place, right? Second is to delegate it. If the task is important, ask yourself, it's really something that you are responsible for doing in the first place? Know your job description and know that, is that task part of my responsibility, or can I task this to someone else? Or can I teach it to someone else, right? So they learn, right? Do it now. This is critical because we procrastinate because we just don't feel like it. But I'm telling you, if you do it now, it's a better rewarding feeling. Just get it done, right? Postponing an important task that needs to be done only creates the feeling of anxiety and stress. Has anyone felt stress or anxiety about getting something done that we've procrastinated on? Yeah, that's not a good feeling. But if you can do it as early in the day as you can, that's when you're at your best. You know, that's when you're most fresh and you can get it done and just set the time aside to do it. Ask for advice. If you don't know where to start, ask for advice. Asking for help from a trusted mentor, a supervisor, a coach, or an expert can give you some great insight on where to start and the steps for completing a project. The next one, number 5, is chop it up. I know that sounds weird, but breaking your large projects into milestones and then actionable steps. So maybe breaking it down to as little as you can and getting it done before you realize it's done. So I don't know if you guys heard of Bob Proctor, but he's a motivational speaker. I don't know. He says, break it down into the ridiculous, which means huge things don't look as big when you break it down as small as you can. The next reason that is deadlines, right? Assign yourself a deadline for projects and milestones and write it in your day planner, your calendar, wherever it may be, and hold yourself accountable to make sure that's done. Whether you need to hold yourself accountable and you'll do it yourself, or whether you need to tell someone, hey, hold me accountable to this date, I need to have it done by this. And sometimes when you tell someone else and they help you, you know that, oh, that person knows that I have to get this done, so I better hurry up and get this done, right? Just knock it out. Distractions, and this is important for all of us. Remove any distractions. You need to establish a positive working environment that's conducive to getting your work done. So, if you want to start there.
Yeah, so the key to reaching high-level performance and productivity is for you to develop the lifelong habits of tackling your major tasks first. You must resist the temptation to start with the easiest task. Successful, effective people are those who launch directly into their major task and then discipline themselves to work steadily and single-mindedly until those tasks are completed. Who does this? I do it.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah?
But I've learned the hard way.
In the business world, you are paid and promoted for achieving specific measurable results. You are paid for making a valuable contribution that is expected of you. But many employees confuse activity with accomplishments. And this causes one of the biggest problems in organizations today, which is failure to execute. And it's true. I mean, you know, once you focus on the big picture and what's, you know, your major tasks instead of the smaller ones, it's a better contribution to you and to your team, right? Okay, so now balance home, school, and work. In order to effectively manage your time to be productive each day, you must create an appropriate environment by eliminating clutter, setting up an effective filing system, gathering essential tools, and managing workflow. You will be well on your way to create an effective workplace. So eliminating clutter, removing clutter is itself a time-consuming task, but a cluttered workplace significantly impairs your ability to find things, and you will get the time back that you invested in and more.
Who needs to declutter their workplace? Yeah. Yep.
Also, managing workflow. How do you process the mountain of material that collects in your inbox? Although difficult at first, the practice can become habitual and is made easier with the 4Ds. Does anybody know the 4Ds?
Yeah, right
Oh, they're
there.
right there. Yeah, do, delete, defer, and delegate. So do means if a task can be completed in 2 minutes or less, do it immediately. And delete is if the material is trash or junk, delete it, or it is something that you might use later on. File it and move on. Defer. If the task is one that can't be completed quickly and is not high priority item, simply defer it. Delegate. If a task is not yours to do, then delegate it. Remember to take the sting out of feeling overwhelmed about a task. So that means select one task to do at a time. Time yourself using a clock for no more than an hour. Ignore everything unless everything else during that time. No breaks or interruptions should be permitted. And give yourself a reward when time is up. No? Doesn't everybody like giving yourself a reward? Can anybody think of a reward that you've given yourself after finishing a task? Mm-hmm.
Brand new car.
Ah, nice.
Oh, that's some type of reward.
Yes.
Ice cream.
Ice cream.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
I do an hour straight of no, like homework, nothing else, and if I complete all of my A within an hour, I get myself 30 minutes to tea.
Ooh,
Awesome, that's great.
Good.
I think you've got time management down.
Yes.
That's great. That's good. It's discipline too, right?
That's good. So, does anybody use their calendar here? So do you use it in your personal life and at work or in school? It's great, isn't it? It keeps you on your tasks. I use it religiously. I literally use it all the time.
Well, and as you grow older, you won't remember, so
Yeah.
you have to use
You
it.
have to.
So, one thing that's really important is setting goals for yourself is really setting SMART goals. I'm sure most of you have heard of SMART goals, yes? Do we all know what SMART goals are? Okay, what's the S stand for? We like to use a lot of acronyms here in the hotel business
We do.
because everything's an acronym, so you have to learn a new language when you come to the hospitality industry.
Simple.
It is specific.
Oh.
Our goal needs to be specific, right? In order for you to achieve a goal, you must be clear about what exactly you want.
I know M is measurable.
Very good. Often creating a list of benefits that accomplishments of your goal will bring it to life. And it will give you a mind of compelling reason to pursue the goal. So it has to be a specific goal. It can't just be something generic. It has to be very specific. And of course, since we put it up here, and you were right, is measurable. Measurable means that you have to be able to measure the goal. This task is going to be done by this time. The specific task by this time. If you're not creating that accountability, the measurement tool, then it's not going to be a goal that is achievable, right? And you can't stay on track if you don't have a goal in mind. And then the achievable, it has to be realistic, right? It has to be achievable at some point. It's not something that I'm going to go make $1 million in 1 year. You know, I mean, that's not achievable to me personally, right? Maybe it is to other people, but for me personally, it's not. Relevant. It has to, before you even set your goals, it's a good idea to sit down and define your core values in your life, because it's tools that will ultimately decide how and what your goals for you to choose. Goals in and of themselves do not provide any happiness. Goals that are in harmony with your life purpose do have the power to make us happy. And then times. Without setting deadlines for your goals, you have no real compelling reason or motivation to start working on them. By setting a deadline, your subconscious mind begins to work on the goal night and day to bring you closer to the achievement. And last, like she had talked about, is reward yourself. Make sure that you are rewarding yourself for completing a project, because it only engages you and excites you to do the next one and get it done, right? Because you feel a sense of accomplishment. You feel good after you finished it. So what we're going to do is go ahead and pass out this, and we're going to go ahead and have you guys, you want to take one out and pass it around, I guess. I didn't do it at all. Here, can you have this time, please, Rita?
If you need an extra. Need an extra one.
Does anybody have an
Yeah,
extra?
okay. Yeah, one.
Okay.
You have more? Just one left. We grab that one. Thank you. And then they need some down here. Great job. So this is your important, can you go back to the matrix? This is your important urgent matrix. So go ahead and think of 5 to 10 tasks that you do. We'll put the grid up again, and I can tell you what the definitions are again if you'd like. So quadrant 1 is urgent and important. These are activities that require your immediate attention. These are like crisis, problems, deadlines. These have to get done, and they're super important. Quadrant 2 is for activities that are important but not urgent. These are the things that require planning. I have to study for a test next Friday. That's kind of important, right? But it's not urgent today because it's next Friday, right? Things you have to plan. They lead to the most fulfillment, progress, the high value items, right? Quadrant 3 are for activities that aren't urgent but not important. These are things like routine tasks. Often time wasters, maybe surfing the internet for just pleasure or whatever, right? And quadrant 4 is activities that are not urgent and not important at all. These are very trivial items. So when you think of the 5 or 10 tasks that you do, go ahead and put them in one of your quadrants.
So you have about 10 minutes.
10?
5?
Yeah.
anybody need a pen? I think I have 2 extra ones.
So one more minute and then we'll share a couple of them. We can. Does anyone want to share what they've put on their matrix? Okay, how about for urgent and important, anybody? No one had anything? Go ahead.
I've got an assignment that's due about an hour in another class.
Have you started it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just need to overlook it again,
Okay,
read over it again.
yeah, okay. I'd say that's pretty urgent and pretty important.
Study.
Study?
Every chapter's about 20, 30 pages of reading, and I have an in-class assignment due on Monday or Wednesday, and it's due the next day at midnight, and I also have another class that is online, and everything's due on Saturday, so I always treat that as urgent and important, because it's coming up.
Now, do you plan that every week because it's the same? Is it a routine?
It's a routine.
Yeah, so it would really fall here, right? High value items.
Yeah.
These
Anybody?
are like crisis. Oh my gosh, I have
Oh,
I have a class in an hour and a project due. I have to get it done now. I haven't started. That's crisis management, right? Gotta hurry up. Anybody else?
Anybody up there want to share?
Just one. How about this quadrant?
there's a lot
Yep.
there.
I put playing on phone for not urgent and not important.
Not urgent, not important. You're exactly right. Playing on the phone. Yeah. But it's fun sometimes, right? But you can reward yourself with that, right? Like you said, your half hour of TV,
Yep.
whatever. That's it. How about urgent, not important?
What do you guys have over here?
But events,
Events on urgent but not important?
it just depends what particular event it is, like, it might not be important, but it might be urgent for you to go.
Ah, okay. Okay. Makes sense. It's you, you know, so it makes sense, yep. So what else falls here, you guys? Important but not urgent. Yeah, go ahead.
I put working out.
Working out. It's great because you probably study better, you probably are more productive if you exercise and get that done. So yeah, very important. Not urgent, but it's important for you to be fulfilled, right? Absolutely. So for the next couple of minutes, we'd like to ask if anyone has any questions or if you want to maybe go any deeper into any sections of the fundamentals of time management that we discussed today. Anybody have any questions? or anything that, you know, we do, in our company, or anything that we can help with.
What company is it? I think I missed it when I was.
Oh, we work for Pathfinder Development, it's a hotel development and management company. Out of Boston. But as far as time management goes, you guys, it's critical for any field that you go into. It's the most important and essential thing that you'll ever have, because not only with the organization prioritization piece, but really visualizing you personally. I can't sit here and tell you, here's your time wasters, here's your time wasters. I don't know you. So you do it for yourself and know where you waste your time. And that will be your first step into conquering that elimination of time wasters. And then look at procrastination, because we all procrastinate. It happens to all of us. It happens at school, it happens at work, and it happens at home. Whether it's chores, whether it's studying, whether it's whatever it is. But really think about how to overcome those. And then when you're planning, make sure that you have those SMART goals, that they're specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So it's important that when you're setting goals, that they're very specific, that they're SMART. Yep. So obviously we finished a little bit early, so we apologize for that, I guess, or maybe you're happy. So thank you all so very much, and have a great day.
Yeah, and